presentation to a group of individuals, but I have to share with you that I found that I'm here in the presence of the family. And I enjoyed the inspirational words of Mr. Luna. It hit home with me, and I want to offer you my most sincere condolences for the passing of one of your family members. Well, I'm here today not just talk about surveying, but perhaps answer some questions after we're done with the presentation. If you have any specific situation that you may have had some questions about how to go about it, I'll be happy to obviously answer those. But before we start, I think we have a Starbucks card for raffle. And just to make it interesting, let's pose a question, and anybody who can answer it will win the Starbucks card. The question I want to pose is like this. Does anybody here know any famous land surveyors? And okay, let me be a little more specific, this question. Would you be able to name 3 presidents, past presidents of the United States who started the profession as land surveyors? Anybody who can answer that will win Starbucks cup.
George Washington.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out so that you guys know I'm in good company.
What was the answer?
Lincoln, Jefferson, and George Washington. George Washington, age of 17, he started as a land surveyor. But what is land surveying, really? Simply put, and this is kind of sums up the presentation. Land surveying is the art and science of establishing or reestablishing points, corners, lines, boundaries, and monuments of real property. But that has to be based on recorded documents as well as historical evidence and the present standard of practice. So that kind of sums up what land surveying is. There's some other services that land surveys provide, such as writing legal assertions, for example, or subdivision design and planning, or construction surveys. Also, precise measurement of angles, lengths, areas, and volume. That is really what a land surveyor does. Who's qualified to do this type of work in California? Anybody knows? If you are hiring a land surveyor, what qualifications would you look for to make sure that you are hiring a professional?
An engineer.
Close. On the individuals who are licensed in the state of California as a licensed land surveyor can perform the duties of a land surveyor. The exception is civil engineers who were licensed prior to 1982. So you may engage a civil engineer, but you have to make sure that their license qualifies them to practice land surveying. And who employs these individuals? That's kind of aside from you guys or your clients. Attorneys, banks, lending institutions, builders, contractors, homeowners, land developers, title companies, architects, and real estate investors. And each one of these, when they hire a land surveyor, they may have a different need for what they engage them to do for them. But there are certain requirements and there are certain laws that apply to land surveyors. Also, the work that a land surveyor does may be required by a local jurisdiction. However, even if it's not required, the work that a land surveyor can do can tremendously benefit the client, even if it's not required. What types of work do we do? There's a range of services that we provide. However, the ones that are probably more familiar to you, and I just put those on the list, are ALTA surveys. Anybody knows what that is? I'm sure you've probably dealt with one or two in your career. What are ALTA surveys really? What are they used for?
To determine where your boundaries the map.
Right. Typically, it is a requirement by the lender. If it's a refinance or they're lending on a piece of commercial property most often, they want to protect their investment and they want to find out if there are any interest that is not of record that may affect that property. And this survey really does that for them. It provides information that are not of record. For example, there may be a pathway that goes through the property. It's not recorded, but by evidence, it shows that somebody has been driving across that property. So they may have an interest, an easement in that property. There may be encroachments. The lender and the client would want to know that to protect their investment. Boundary surveys. These are also referred to as lot surveys. Anybody here has ever, if you have, your client has purchased a residential property, they may have asked you, hey, do you know a surveyor that can do this for me? And most often, the reason behind that is because they either are going to build a fence or they move in or they are about to purchase the property and they see something that doesn't make sense to them. Maybe the building is over the line or the wall is over the line, and they want to make sure what they're purchasing and what type of encroachments there are. This next one is pretty important. It's a flood elevation certificate. This type of service can, in a lot of times, can help your client to save a tremendous amount of money in insurance premium. If the elevation certificate can show certain situation on the ground, it can help the insurance premium to be lowered by quite a bit. And also, if that's proven, that your client will be reimbursed back to the anniversary of the insurance, any money that they paid in addition to what they were supposed to pay. Topographic surveys, these usually come in when you are about to start a new construction. So the architect wants to know what's the lay of the land, what's out there, and how to design the new structure. Court exhibits, those are typically if there is a conflict, boundary conflict, or I'm actually will be serving as an expert witness on a project that is pretty interesting. This gentleman built his house in Rancho Palos Verdes. Beautiful 360 degrees, almost 360 degrees view. Just when he was ready to get his certificate of occupancy, the neighbor above him, who had actually was the original subdivider, had a covenant in place that said the roof cannot be higher than a certain elevation. So lo and behold, the owner of the property above contacts the city, says, you know what, the roof seems to be higher and it's blocking my view. So they hired the surveyor. He goes back, the original surveyor that goes back there and says, oh yeah, it's about 1.3 foot higher. The owner of this property was so nice, said, you know what, I don't want to get into any litigation. Let's just redesign, change everything, lower the roof by 1.3. I want to move in. My family is so excited to move in by Christmas. They do that. They go through expensive redesign and they chop the roof and they lower it by 1.3 foot. And once they're done, the neighbor again contacts the city, says, you know what, I don't think it's right, it's still too high. Well, it is, it was. This gentleman is now, lost that place and is in the process of lawsuit. And I will be their expert witness in this case. But things can go wrong if you don't engage a professional who has the experience to do the work that needs to be done. It can be quite painful and expensive. Construction surveys, which basically is what we tell the builders where to place things, not only in horizontal but also in vertical positions. And they heavily rely on surveyors to do their work. This is just an example of an ALT survey. I don't know if you can see that very well, but basically the information, this is in downtown LA, 35-story building. Certain information are shown, easements of record, also if there are any encroachments will be itemized so the lender can basically make their judgment call. This is an elevation certificate, typically 3 pages, which provides information as to where the finished floor elevation of a building is with respect to flood elevation, as well as lowest and highest elevations. And the insurance companies will use this information to decide what the premium is going to be. When is the survey needed? Well, I think it's kind of intuitive for most people to know, well, I need a survey, or maybe I think I need a survey. But typically, before buying, selling, or refinancing, especially with commercial properties of a piece of property, before subdividing the land, you definitely have to have, not only you have to have it, it is the requirement of the jurisdictions that you have it. Before construction of a new fence, perhaps, a wall, and when it's required by lender for flood insurance. Also, when there's a conflict in boundaries, and those usually arise from a person who has written a legal description without the benefit of a competent land surveyor. And it's happened in the past. We still deal with that. In maybe 50 years ago, individuals would take it upon themselves to write a legal description. And I can assure you that I've seen many of them, and 99% of them create an issue. Either it's an overlap or a gap. So the surveyor is now has to go back and go beyond that and do his or her due diligence to find out really what was meant to be and set things straight. But that is a real everyday thing that we see in most cases. And when it happens, the best course of action is avoid going to court, because it's very expensive, time consuming. If you can come to certain agreement with your neighbor, that's really the best course of action. And there are ways of resolving those issues. Land surveyors work, it's a career specializing in different types of disciplines. Engineering, as well as they have to be a historian, and some folks say they have to be archaeologists, because you see surveyors out there digging. They may dig a hole of 3 or 4 feet sometimes to find a monument that's been buried. And they find it. And of course law, because we have to know how certain legal premises apply to boundaries. Legal requirements. This is basically what it means is what is the work of a land surveyor governed by? What legal premises? Business and Professional Code, as well as Professional Land Surveyors Act and Subdivision Map Act. Those are the 3 top acts that govern the type of work we do. This is probably, every time I have done this presentation, before I even start, somebody raises their hand and says, well, how much does a survey cost? It's not a simple answer. It clearly depends on the nature of the survey and the liability. So that is a big factor that the surveyors take into account. And where is it located? You may have a project in the middle of downtown LA, very well monumented, and everything is just copacetic. The price is going to be a lot lower than if you send me somewhere in Lancaster. I have to go, really expand the scope of survey to find enough control to establish the boundaries. So really there's not a straightforward answer for how much it costs, but to give you a simple example, if you're looking at a typical lot survey in the city, let's say right here, a lot that's maybe 50 by 100 feet, you're looking for a boundary survey, you're probably looking at around maybe $1,200 to $1,600, depending on certain situations. So some really helpful tips. If you are considering to hire a land surveyor, you got to do your homework. First of all, write down what it is that you want to accomplish. And, try to, come up with how much you're willing to spend and how soon do you need the survey. Also, once you engage a surveyor or you contemplate hiring a surveyor, go ahead and check their background. Make sure their licenses are current and there are no previous fines that they had to pay for certain things. And all of that is available on the board's website, so you can check the history of the land surveyor to see when were they licensed, are their licenses still valid. By the way, we will send you a copy of this if you would be interested. All you have to do is just give us your business cards and we'll send you a copy of this presentation. Here are some other helpful links. One for FEMA, in case you are, or you or your client needs an elevation certificate. You can go to that website and even look at the flood zone to see what flood zone the property is located in. Consumer guide, very helpful. I recommend that you take a look at that site. And California Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, this is where you go to basically verify the currency of the license of the professional you're hiring. PLS Act, if you're really, really bored and can't fall asleep at night, you can read that. And ALTA is ACSM standards. This is kind of a nice thing to be familiar with. Not only what is an ALTA survey, but also at the end of that standards, there's a table 8, which is basically the items that your client will hire the surveyor to do, defines the scope of work. So it's probably a good idea to be familiar with, especially if you are in a situation that you may recommend or get involved with your client in preparing an ALTA survey. So you come across as very knowledgeable, and there's some very interesting information and useful information on it. And now, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have with respect to what we talked about, or if anything that has come up with for you in the past.